So, 1984 or A Brave New World? Not what is the better book, not what your favorite book is, but what has the most effective control system? What does the best job of controlling the most people with the least amount of effort and fuss? And it may be an oxymoron to ask which of these dystopian books is the better control system, because just in the name, dystopia, it is synonymous with a fallen world, one that is maybe doomed to fail, one that's corrupt, whereas a utopia is the exact opposite and it's a perfect world. And I would argue that although both are dystopian books, both authors really swayed or they were biased more toward this nihilistic view that order will always be restored to the party. It doesn't matter how much the character struggles, you'll still be defeated. It's blatant in both books because neither has a happy ending or really a very hopeful ending. Even though we sympathize with the characters, we're meant to sympathize with the characters because whether the authors meant to or not, they were creating a character that would embody just like the modern working man that is, I mean, still relevant today. In 1984, Big Brother really utilizes the psychological operations to control the minds of the people instead of curbing their more biological impulses in Brave New World. So when I'm making this argument, I really have to hone in on this idea of psychology winning out over biology. So it's certainly arguable that both books are effective dystopians in their own right. And the fact that the party goes on and the real villain, which is the main character, one who's defeated. So if pretending we're the evil geniuses sitting around that circular table coming up with plans to rule the world, and we had both of these books in front of us as game plans, basically, war strategy guides, which one would we choose? And we could argue that both are kind of a blend of one another. They borrow ideas from one another. We could probably look at that and create an argument for that. But if we had to choose which one had the more effective strategy when it comes to controlling people, which one wins out and why? And I'm here to argue that 1984 is the more superior control system in that it relies heavily on psychology over biology to control its subjects. Whereas Brave New World, they leaned way more on the biology, the chemical aspect to control the body and then therefore control the mind. By controlling all biological impulses through the soma drug, the party of that world was able to keep people in pretty manageable check. So, what are some of the strategies that both of the books use? In both of the books, one of the major strategies it uses is what I'm going to just call the steam whistle method, which is a way of releasing the people's pent up urges, maybe subconscious impulses, letting people release that as like a stress relief almost, so that they become more compliant and fall back in line. In A Brave New World, John the Savage is used as that steam whistle. He's used as the archaic figure outside of society that people can visit, and that acts as a steam whistle in the same way that a zoo works for people who are interested in looking at dangerous animals. They can get up close to something as ferocious as a tiger, and it allows them to maybe connect more on a personal level with their more base animal fears. And that's what happens in Brave New World. People visit the old country museum that's left over outside of civilization, and they watch the skits there, and they look at the old prairie houses. They get to see that, compared to the party, that this world is much more archaic. It's the fallen world in their minds. So by releasing that steam whistle, where people can look at what the alternative is of the party, they can see, oh, well, then if that's my only alternative, then I'm going to fall back in line. In 1984, the steam whistle is what I would argue to be O'Brien, the figure of O'Brien. He is the figure, at least in Winston's life, who shows him this conspiratorial, like underground kind of revolutionary resistance against the party. In the book, O'Brien is a controlled opposition of sorts. He is a shill. He is put there as an actor by Big Brother, by the state, to act as like a honeypot to attract people to him, to attract dissenters like Winston. He's there to pick out the troublemakers. And by creating a false hope within them, he acts as a steam whistle of sorts. Because those dissenters, those troublemakers, are going to need someone like him who can fill them full of false hope, false ideals, give them this motivation to overthrow a party that's actually working against them. So this controlled opposition is a psychological operation. It's a psychological tactic in and of itself. But I would even argue that from the very beginning, O'Brien started off as just a mind seed, a voice in the head. Before he actually introduces himself as a person in these people's lives, I think the state are actually using probably the vid screens they have into people's homes as like a lure. They're fishing for dissenters. Because when you read the book, Winston, he's first shown O'Brien in a dream. And O'Brien gives him the pivotal piece of information that leads Winston on his rabbit hole journey into the underground resistance that's completely controlled by Big Brother. So I would argue that the fact that Winston was dreaming of O'Brien before they even really met in real life shows me that the state understands psychology so well that they can use subliminal clues, subliminal messaging in their reports, in their media, to fish out for people who aren't very happy within the system. But I picture O'Brien's voice projecting through the vid screens in these people's houses every night, seeding ideas in people's heads subconsciously while they're dreaming, giving people this false hope, and seeing who starts to act out in real life. They'll recognize O'Brien's voice and they'll want to connect with him. So through that steam whistle, they're able to bring in any troublemakers and correct them, which is the whole ending of the book, and try to break their mind. Really, it's That's really where the book begins and ends, is in the mind. And I would argue all day that that is a more effective control system than just drugging people with soma in Brave New World and just giving them that steam release of orgies and the freak shows. And it's like the bread and circus idea that Rome really utilized. Brave New World has that in spades. But I think that in the end, it's a less effective method, simply because it really hinges on the drugs, the soma, to operate effectively. Because once the drugs dry up, if there was like a supply kind of shortage, then the whole system collapses, because they're being manipulated on a chemical biological level to fall in line to operate as they are. Whereas in 1984, these ideas are seeded in their subconscious, in their psyche. And it's almost like inevitable, because you can't really control your subconscious mind. That's the scary thing. And if Big Brother or the party, the state, can control that subconscious mind, then can it control the conscious mind? I mean, that's what 1984 is really proposing. And I'll leave it at that for today. I hope you all got something out of this. I hope you enjoyed my video, and we'll see you in the next one.